To order the October 23rd meeting of the Tax Increment Financing Board. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting and may transmit the meeting through any media. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. I'll call you back. That was one of the members trying to get in, only kidding. I'd like to call the roll next. I'm here. Seth Aiken.
Here.
Linda Pereira.
Here.
Sean Kadim.
Here.
Joe Camara.
Here.
Sorry, guys.
Boy.
All right. Richie Gonzalez.
Here.
Frank Marchioni.
Here.
Citizens input? Hearing none. I'll ask for approval of the March 24, 2023 minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. Approved. All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to go out of order a little bit. We'll take item number 7, tax increment exemption request for 66 Troy Street. Mr. Viola.
Sure. Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for the TIF board convening this Monday morning. Well, today we got 3 tie agreements that are coming before the TIF board for consideration. Collectively, they represent more than $43 million of private investment within the city for the creation of market rate units. The project I'd like to discuss with you today is the tie request for 66 Troy Street. You may previously recall that the TIF board and the city council, actually the TIF board and the council actually approved an August 2021 tax increment exemption for this particular project. But the project never moved forward, due to various reasons, primarily the HDIP program no longer being available, or DHCD not accepting HDIP applications. So since from 2021 to 23, the project has now expanded from 27 to 36 market rate units, which will be incorporated at the Troy Street facility. It is anticipated that all of the units will be 100% market rate, and the time frame is that they would like to get going sometime during calendar year 2024 for the actual construction of the project itself. In this particular instance, the estimated private investment is just about it's just over 10 million, actually estimated to be $10,735,362. In your package, you have the draft tie agreement, and it's draft because there's going to be some tweaking that's going to be necessary to it. So when I prepared this draft tie agreement, as well as the other 2, we used the data that was available to us from Patriot Properties in terms of base data, base values. I think Richie's got some additional information on that to share with you this morning. So before any of this goes to the council, all the correct numbers will be inserted into the draft, and then once the council gets it, it'll be a more complete package in terms of the actual valuations. But what we do, and what historically has been done with all tie agreements to date, is that the TIF board and subsequently the city council adopt a 10-year tie agreement in which during the first 5 years during project stabilization, the developer is awarded an 80% tax exemption on the new value that he's created, and then for the next 5 years, it's a 20% exemption. So over a 10-year period, it actually reflects a 50% average exemption over that period of time. As you know, we've done a number of these, and this is in keeping with the other ones that have been approved, and I'm hoping that the TIF board will also allow this to move forward with that proposed tie schedule that's being presented today, and subsequently will be submitted to City Council upon your approval and recommendation. We have the developer here with us, Anthony Cordero. I think everybody's familiar with all the project that Tony's been involved in. You know, Tony single-handedly has redeveloped that whole area around Pleasant Third and Troy Street, as well as Commonwealth Landing on the waterfront. And I think anybody that's seen his projects knows the type of work that he's done, and it's all been professional and an added bonus to the city in terms of the development of market rate housing. So we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Seth?
So on the last page, or second last page, there's an estimated monthly rent of $1,900. It says here there's gonna be one-bedroom and two-bedroom units. Is that a one-bedroom unit, or is that just an aggregate estimate?
It's an
So there's
aggregate.
36 units, so that's an aggregate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And,
We actually had a study done, had a conversation with Ken, sorry Seth, but we're averaging about 1875 to 19 and a quarter.
so it's probably a pretty close estimate, sure.
It's a real number.
Great. There's probably gonna be questions about the lack of affordable units for a percentage. If you could just speak to that, that'd be really helpful.
I can, you know, so I go back 40 years, Seth, right? I'm not displacing anyone, right? I'm creating new housing.
No doubt.
I'm not taking a multifamily and moving affordable housing out and creating market rate, which is what the market will pay. I'm taking a mill that survived the historical fire back in the 1900s. I'm taking that historical building that I developed back in 1999 and created commercial uses. We know now where commercial uses are in our city, and I'm trying to redevelop that building and bring in some beautiful windows and make it what it was back in the 1900s. I'm trying to create a vision that Ken and I go back 40 years about, can we create a downtown Fall River that goes dark after 5 o'clock and create some vibrancy? To be honest with you, my biggest thing is how do I keep the dog parks that I'm creating and make, walkers for groomers and all that other stuff happening? And I see that taking place. My last project, Seth, was the garment workers building that was vacant for almost 15 years. That building should have been torn down. No heat, no electric, no nothing. 14 years, you know what that does to a building. And so we overpaid to make that building work, right? It was supposed to be a gym on the JSL, and I can go on and on and on. But we delivered 15 units. It was rented in 14 days. And we created people that are new to the city, that hopefully we can create some synergy with commercial uses. That's my goal. Ken and I often talk. I'm 62 almost, and question why. Just came back. I mentioned to the members of the committee, we came back from Georgia, enjoyed a great trip, but the city has so much potential that we're starting to finally realize it. I just want to be a part of that.
One more question.
Yeah.
In the garment workers building, how many of those units are being rented by people that came in from out of town?
80%.
Great. Thank you, sir.
And 80%, and it's crazy, and again, I'm not displacing anyone because I'm a product of Davis Street, right? 15 units, I think I showed Frank and others. $1,800 for a studio. And these kids are coming in with 1,200, maybe, I'm sorry, 120,000 of income, 140. We're just supplementing the housing that's existing in the city. And, why not, right? We're so close to Providence, all the communities we heard for 30 years. So I just think it makes sense if we can build a basis of people living in that area. I wonder what would happen with, coffee houses and microbrews and whatever, Seth.
Sure.
I don't know.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Just to follow up on that point, because I think, there is some misinformation on a lot of these projects. As Tony has indicated, his project and the other two that are going to come before you as well, there's no displacement. These are all new additive housing opportunities to the city, market rate additives. And, typically that's a constituency that's going to have more disposable income that they can spend within the city and support restaurants and support gas stations and support markets and support everything. But, I always get back to this point, we all need to keep in mind that 28% of Florida's housing stock is subsidized. The state average is 10%. We far exceed that. So if you're going to have a healthy community, I'm of the opinion that you have to have a balanced community in terms of low income, middle income, and higher income. And so Fall River is presenting itself as a very desirable location for market rate housing, primarily because of our location, the ability to get to and from places relatively easily. The city itself is still a gem. People, when they come in here, they're surprised about the quality of restaurants and a bunch of other, amenities that the city has to offer. So, the market rate housing pushes here, and commuter rail is also driving some of that expansion.
Any other discussion points?
No, I know he has plenty of parking around that building too, so.
We do.
I guess then I'm looking for a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
And a motion second. Any further discussion? I'll call the roll. Frank Marchioni.
Mr. Chairman, due to my affiliation with Bristol County Economic Development Consultants, and I'm also a client of Mr. Cadero's insurance agency, I must recuse and abstain from voting.
Abstain. Richie Gonzalez.
Yes.
Joe Camara.
Yes.
Sean.
Yes.
Linda.
Yes.
Seth.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion's approved. Down one. Next item on the agenda, tax increment exemption for Sanford Spinning Mills.
Okay, great. I know that the owners of the property texted as stuck in traffic, so I'm not sure if they will make it or not. However, again, this is a proposal that's coming before the TIF board for consideration. This is the rehab of one of the Glow Mill Ave properties located, at 206 Glow Mills Ave. It's one of the former Duro properties. To put in context, it's right behind the Cuss School and across the street from Ashworth Brothers that has been recently converted to market rate housing. The project is on, the historical register. This one is a relatively large project where they're looking, to create, I think it's 93 units within the project itself. All parking will be on site for this particular project. They've already gone through, they've submitted a site plan review application to the city. And so they're moving forward and getting some of their ducks in a row in terms of financing. Again, in keeping with past practice, we're asking for the same sort of exemption that was just recently awarded to Mr. Cadero, where the first 5 years of the tie would represent 80% exemption on new value that's being created. And then it would be 20% on the remaining 5 for an average of 50% over that 10-year period. Again, this is a significant project in the south end of the city, adjacent to, like I said, the Cuss. The Duro Mills have been vacant for a number of years. I know that from the city perspective, that's always a concern for vandalism, fire, and squatting. So having this mill repurposed for this type of use will not only result in a new constituency of people locating in the south end of the city, but it will also help protect, a rather large mill itself. This particular property is 110,000 square feet, so this is one of the larger ones. Overall project cost for this is about $28 million, so it's not cheap moving it forward. It's going to be a significant investment for the rehab of this property. Again, this is a draft proposal, a draft tie agreement that you have. Again, it doesn't reflect what may be the accurate base values, to which Mr. Gonzalez will be providing me after this meeting for incorporation into the tie agreement itself. All these tie agreements are the same. There's no change of language between all three of them. So if you read one, you've read them all. You just got to incorporate the project names and the number of units and the private investment. In this particular instance, there is some taxes owed on the property that was supposed to be cleared up either this week or last week with some project refinancing. So in this particular instance, what I'm asking is the board approve this conditional upon those taxes being paid and that the project is current with the city before we bring it to the city council. So by the time it gets to the city council, all those taxes will have been paid and it'll be a project that can move forward. If for some reason the taxes are not paid, then the project will not be brought before the city council for consideration. Happy to answer any questions. I don't know if there.
Any discussion points? Mr. Kamara?
How much do we owe in taxes?
I think Mr. Thomas has that information.
Yeah, this is only one of them, right, H 2022?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So between the two parcels, they owe us $39,810.71 in tax title. I spoke with them last week, and they were coming in end of last week to the refinancing. So they were gonna produce that information for us. If not, they were gonna sign an installment agreement. Either one of those satisfies the provisions of 14-4, the city ordinance, that requires them to either be on an agreement or current on their taxes. And I think on the 22 one, which is the one that's before you, I think it's probably about 24,000 of that. But we have a policy in the city that if it's in the same name, you have to pay all your taxes. We don't allow you to cherry pick. So that should be resolved by the end of this week. So the Treasurer's Office would support Ken's request that it be approved contingent. This is the attorney for Sanford.
How are you? Sorry.
That's okay.
It was an accident on my Morning.
This is Attorney Stacy Norrell. She's representing the property owner.
Good morning.
We'll be able to have, right.
Any other discussion points?
So just, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kadim?
So just in terms of the taxes that would be paid if this is approved here prior to council?
Yes, yeah, so nothing will go before the council until that tax liability is satisfied. But rather than delaying this and having reconvening, we'd like to get these things moving forward. Now that I should have mentioned earlier, the Housing Development Improvement Program, tax credit program has now been reauthorized by the legislature. So for instance, in this year, there's $59 million of tax credits available. So in order to tap into those potential tax credits, as part of that application procedure, the developer must have a tie in place. And they also have to go through parts 1 and parts 2 of the application procedure, which will now force all developers to come up with a much more documented approach for their projects. Everything from a commitment from bank financing to historical tax credits to environmental analysis. All these other things will be necessary for that HDIP application, but the tie is also a part of that. So we're just trying to keep momentum moving forward so that we don't hold things up.
I know
Counselor
that
Pereira?
Mr. Thomas, Attorney Thomas said that they have, they're gonna be coming in and catching up on their taxes, or they're gonna be put on a payment plan. If they're put on a payment plan and they don't follow the rules of the payment plan, what happens to the tie?
So,
I'd rather have them pay it all up front.
which I think is their
It
intention.
would make me feel more
I
comfortable
believe
to
that
vote
that's
on
their
it.
intention.
Yes.
But this happens
Right.
very frequently. If you do, any board, whether it's a zoning permit, or whether it's a planning board, or even a milk license, if it is under an agreement, there is language put in the license that it's contingent on the agreement staying current, and if the agreement isn't kept current, it defaults it.
Okay.
And if there's a default, we will not bring the HDIP application forward. If that, but maybe Attorney Norrell wants to speak to that.
So the owner is planning to do a refinance this week, and part of that, we've already requested the payoff and the MLC, and the full liability should be paid in full hopefully this week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything further? I do want to say that's a very hot area in the city of Fall River. If you look at Ashworth Lofts, I drive through there. We have a ton of military families living there because of the rents on Aquidneck Island are literally pushing them up. You see cars from Washington, Indiana, Illinois in the parking lot. And I asked about it when I did a tour of the inside, and they said it's a lot of military families because of the rents. So that's a good thing. Again, new money into the city of Fall River to spend on our restaurants and stores. Very positive, and I hope we can get this done. Any further discussion? I'm looking for a motion and a second. Motion to vote.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll call the roll. Mr. Marchioni?
Mr. Chairman, due to my affiliation with Bristol County Office of Economic Development, as our consultants as we are today, I must abstain from the vote.
Okay. Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Kamara?
Yes.
Mr. Kadim?
Yes.
Ms. Pereira?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
And myself, yes. One abstention, unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item to come before the Tax Increment Finance Board is a request for Durfee Trust Limited Partnership, 84 North Main Street. Mr. Fiola.
Yes, thank you. So I think everybody's somewhat familiar with this property. This property is the old bank building, which is located directly across the street from Bank 5 on the corner of Bank and North Main. There's one correction in the letter that you have before you. Rather than 20 one-bedroom residential units, there will actually be 22. So there'll be an increase of 2 additional units that's going to be proposed for this project. Again, this is one of the historical buildings within the downtown historic district. It was constructed in 1887 and expanded back in 1905 and 1933. You know, it's really significant from an historic standpoint, and it represents a neoclassical detailing throughout the facade of the property itself. BMC Durfee Trust was the actual bank that was actually located there. In this particular instance, we're looking at approximately of an $8 million investment for the project's actually $8.4 million. The project is moving along quite rapidly. I've seen some detailed drawings on the apartments that'll be located there. There is ample off-street parking that in and around the area that Mr. Ferris has secured or owns. The project has received approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So the next step in his process to draw this project to conclusion is to go through the tie process with the TIF Board, City Council, and ultimately have an HDIP application approved for the project itself. Just so you know how these things, you know, we look at 8.4 million, and all 3 of these projects are all will all receive historic tax credits. So for easy math purposes, and you can apply it to all these projects, so you will get, each of these developers will get a 20% tax, federal tax credit for these projects on qualified expenses. So in this particular instance, you might see close to $1.6 million in tax credits on this, plus a state tax credits of, say, another 15%, so that gives you another $1 million or so. So right there, you're at, you know, you're close to taking $3 million right off the overall cost of these projects, and that's typically how they cash flow. So having these projects cash flow is based upon these historic tax credits. And then if you add an HDIP tax credit on that, that could be another $1 million or up to $2 million. You know, so that gets you to $4, maybe $5 million. And instead of having an $8 million project, you have a $3 million project at the end of the day. And the developers sell off these tax credits, right? So you sell them off at 85 to 90 cents on the dollar, and that's how they raise revenues to offset some of these expenses. So, and so in addition to rehabbing these buildings, we're also preserving them for different uses, which I think is also an important point here. To the best of my knowledge, there aren't any outstanding taxes owed on this building. Again, we will adjust the base values in accordance with the information that Mr. Gonzalez gives us. But once again, here, we're asking for the same exemption schedule that was previously granted, representing 80% of exemptions on the new value created over the first 5 years, 20% on the valuation over the next 5 years. So over the 10-year period, it's a 50% averaged tax exemption for the particular project. This project is significant, as are the others. This one here is right on North Main Street, and it's been vacant for a number of years, so I think this will be a nice addition to that section of North Main Street as the city continues to move forward. Happy to answer any questions.
Wasn't that one of the first, or the first bank in Fall River?
I think it was, I'm not 100% sure, but if it wasn't the first, it was amongst the first,
They
right?
have a heck of a vault in there.
They do.
The inside is gorgeous. I've been in that building
Yeah.
a couple of
And
times.
the first floor of the building itself is going to be maintained for commercial use, so the residential will be above. So that's,
Nice.
so we're generating activity on the first floor with the residential above, which I think is important for our main streets.
Anybody else have any comments or concerns? All right, I'm looking for a motion and a second.
Motion,
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on Durfee Trust Limited? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Frank, I heard it.
Mr. Chairman, our office is very busy, and we will continue to be here.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Kamara? Yes. Mr. Kadeem?
Yes.
Mrs. Pereira?
yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Okay, any new business to come before the board? Hearing none. Any old business to come before the board? Hearing none.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you all, appreciate it.